Dunedin, Florida, this is John Schneider's first Blue Jays camp as manager. This marks the first time he has been tasked with communicating the good and bad news that accompanies opening day squad decisions. There are a lot of tough and not so good conversations, so whether telling Alek it's an opening day or telling the kids they're on the opening day roster, a really great conversation. It's a good part of the job, said the manager on Saturday. We can now single-handedly count the number of days left in camp, which means final squad decisions are on the horizon. The Blue Jays coaching team will be reviewing the latest cuts and returning the season to St. It will hold meetings on Sunday and Monday to decide the roster they will open in St. Of course, this Blue Jays roster is pretty tuned from the get-go. Jobs to catch a lineup role and possibly the final spot in the arena. And Saturday's series of roster moves and news provided clues as to what the arena's structure would be. Right-handed shooter Mitch White, who was already behind in formation after a right shoulder impingement, was diagnosed with right elbow inflammation after pitching in a minor league game earlier this week. It will be closed for now and Blue Jays will reassess the situation in the coming days. But all signs point to him starting the season on the injured list. Meanwhile, a group of pitchers have been reassigned and selected to the minor league camp, including Nate Pearson, Trent Thornton, and Zach Thompson, all of whom were candidates for last place in the arena. All of which means Zach Pop will likely win the business, but we'll cover that more below. For now, let's make a final guess about the 26-man squad. FanGraphs Dan Szymborski's Zips DC projections for each player are included. Remember, projections tend to be conservative. Catcher's Danny Jansen Projection for 47 PA, 21 HR, 70 RBI, .235.3 15 point for 43, 2.9 WAR Alejandro Kirk Projection for 75 PA, 15 HR, 63 RBI, .267.3 52 point for 26 3 point for WAR. Other names in the 40-man roster: Daulton Varsho depth Rob Brantly. As Szymborski points out in his remarkable in-depth article, teams are starting to move from viewing position as start plus a substitute to bilateral deal, and the Blue Jays are clearly in best position. The Blue Jays took first place in the catcher with Kirk and Jansen in FanGraphs positional power rankings. Essentially, Toronto has two starting caliber backstops that share the position. Keeping Kirk and Jansen healthy will be crucial, but getting Brandon Belt to take regularly set hitter shifts should increase the amount of rest catchers get, and in theory, reduce wear and tear. Varsho can step in as an instant catcher in a pinch, but if either Kirk or Jansen is seriously injured, Brantly, who has had a spectacular overlooked campsite, will likely be summoned. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Projection 637 PA, 33 HR, 103 RBI, .284.3 59.514, 4.0 WAR Bo Bichette Projection 658 PA, 26 HR, 99 RBI, .280.3 27 point for 69, 4.6 WAR Santiago Espinal Projection 504 PA, 8 HR, 53 RBI, .26932 4.378, 2.6 WAR Whit Merrifield Projection 504 PA, 10 HR, 56 RBI, .251.298.378, 0.9 WAR Cavan Biggio Projection 196 PA, 5 HR, 20 RBI, .225.338.371, 0.7 WAR Matt Chapman Projection 665 PA, 32 HR, 92 RBI, .236.331 point for 62, 5.5 WAR Brandon Belt Projection 399 PA, 20 HR, 55 RBI, .243.343 point for 71, 1.9 WAR. Other names in the 40-man roster: Addison Barger, Spencer Horwitz, Leo Jimenez, or Elvis Martinez depth Vinny Capra, Ernie Clement A. Few weeks ago, Guerrero had a little fright when he felt a pain in his right knee and had to withdraw from the World Baseball Classic, but he's fine now. If anything unforeseen happens in last 3 days of camp, that's time of year when coaching team wants to balloon their players. This is group that will start season with club. And it was exactly the band we were waiting for. Sometimes it's good to be surprised, like when you put on a jacket for the first time in a year and find $5 in your pocket. However, when building a major league roster, no surprises are good. Outfielders Kevin Kiermaier Projection for 27 PA, 9 HR, 49 RBI, .230, .290, 2.2 WAR George Springer Projection 595 PA, 30 HR, 89 RBI, .260 to .345.491, 4.8 WAR Daulton Varsho Projection 573 PA, 32 HR, 98 RBI, .255, .319.503, 4.0 WAR Projection 14 PA, 0 HR, 2 RBI, .248.305.358, 0.1 were others in the 40-man team. Nathan Luke Steph Winton Bernard, Glass Eden. One of the few remaining squad decisions is the 26-man job. Among the guys still vying for that job are Lopez, Lukes and Capra. Based on his performance this spring, Lopez separated himself from that group. It hits point for 44.5, 45.611 in 9 Grapefruit League games. He also put on a good show playing for Canada on the WBC, which the Blue Jays coaches certainly took into consideration. When asked what they look for from role on bench, Schneider listed as factors his positional versatility, ability to perform on, off the field, and when called on field. It's a combination of things, and if we're healthy and performing well, it's at least a complementary role to start with, so considering whose game fits that, the manager said. Lopez ticks these boxes. He can play anywhere on the field. His hit-to-ball skills are well suited for a bench role with occasional playing time, and he has good speed on bases. Meanwhile, Lukes is a natural outfielder, and should be the first to be summoned if one of Toronto's outfielders falls down with an injury. Beginner shooters Alek Manoah Kevin Gassman Projection 13 to 8 at 177 IP, 3.66 ERA, 3.8 Battle Chris Bassett Projection 14 to 9, 3.63 ERA at 184 IP, 2.9 Battle Jose Barrios Projection 177 IP, 1.910 to 10 IN WAR, 4.38 ERA UCI Kikuchi Projection 8 to 7, 4.49 ERA at 129 IP, 0.5 WAR. Other names in the 40-man roster: White, Hyunjin Ryu, Thompson, Thomas Hetch, Depth Bowden Francis, Casey Lawrence, Drew Hutchison, Ricky Tiedemann. Schneider formalized 2 resolutions this week: the Manoah opening day launcher and Kikuchi in rotation. Did we already predict this would happen? But as my father said, it's important to put it in writing. For Kikuchi, who will carry a 1.00 ERA to his last spring outing, Schneider said, he did more than we expected. He understands that his process started in November. And I think you're seeing the results of your work at camp right now. So when you tell him to keep doing what you're doing, he has a lot to refer to. After Manoah on opening day, Gaussman lined up to start the second game against the Cardinals. Bassett will make his last spring start on Monday, making it to St. Hill lineup for the third game in St. Louis. Barrios and Kikuchi, who will field in last game of spring on Tuesday, will take turns to mound for first 2 games against Royals in Kansas City. Embossing pitcher Jordan Romano Projection 32 recordings, 3.64 ERA on 66 IPs, 0.5 WAR. Plum Swan Projection 2 recordings, 3.76 ERA at 65 IP, 0.8 Battle Yimi Garcia Projection 4.04 ERA, 0.3 WAR at 70 IP. Anthony Bass Projection 1 save, 3.68 ERA on 62 IPs, 0.3 WAR. Tim Mesa Projection 3.62 ERA, 0.2 Battle at 57 IP. Adam Chimber Projection 3.80 ERA, 0.3 Battle at 60 IP. Trevor Richards Projection 4.31 ERA at 46 IP, 0.0 WAR. Zach Pop Projection 4.23 ERA at 44 IP, 0.0 WAR. Other names for 40 White, Pearson, Thornton, Chad Green, Hagen Danner, Jasper Zaluda. Depth: Hayden Junger, Matt Peacock, Junior Fernandez, Luke Bard, Jackson Rees, Paul Fry, Julian Fernandez, Adrian Hernandez, Brandon Izard. Schneider hasn't definitively confirmed that Pop will be joining the opening day roster on Saturday, said he jumped because had a pretty good opportunity, but it wasn't exactly necessary. Squad movements early in the day were sufficient. And the 26-year-old Canadian sidekick deserves it after he put in a solid show at camp as well, with a 1.69 ERA and 5.13 in 8 hits. When asked what impressed him about Pop this camp, Schneider pointed to his elite sinker and the more consistent landing of his slider. As for Pearson, he will start that season in AAA. The message is simple. Don't lose the momentum you gained at camp, Schneider said.